wisdom,
prudentia,
justice,
justitia,
temperance,
temperantia,
courage.
fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
And we're on. Howdy, Simon.
Howdy, Steve. Oh, look at that. You can tell it's morning here because my voice has already cracked. I promise I am past puberty.
Hey, gee whiz, Simon, would you like to talk about Stoicism today?
It's great to be with you here, Steve. Oh my gosh.
Oh, this is a classic episode already.
Yeah,
welcome to the Sunday Stoic podcast. My name is Steve, coming to you from Conway, Arkansas, of all places on this earth. That's where I am. And I'm joined today by the eminent Simon Drew, podcaster, life coach, musician, all-around good guy. Simon, welcome back. Well, actually, welcome for the first time officially to the Sunday Stoic podcast.
That's true. Officially to the Sunday Stoic. This is an absolute privilege. And hello all the way from the beautiful Mooloolaba Sunshine Coast. There's this meme that goes around here on the Sunshine Coast, Steve, every year that for like the 150th year in a row, Sunshine Coast people are surprised that winter is here because we don't get winter. We get like California winter, but still to us it's surprising because
what is this?
As soon as it gets a little bit chilly, we're like, what is this? And so
well, here we're experiencing summer, full-fledged,
oh yeah, Arkansas
nice and hot
summer.
outside. I have to do some metric conversions so I don't give you Fahrenheit because we're divided by a measurement system here. So let me see.
One completely irrational, one perfectly rational and useful. I'll let you decide.
It's about 33 outside. How's that?
Okay. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Okay.
It's been a little warmer than that some days, but it's also very humid here. Now,
yeah, of course.
You have a California summer. Do you also have the California drought issues out your way?
The Sunshine Coast, I would say, is a little haven when nothing bad ever happens. And so we don't have, you drive an hour north or south or west, you're going to find drought-stricken places. I mean, like Queens, Australia in general is just, there's always a drought somewhere. There's always somebody suffering from some weather somewhere, which I guess is the same everywhere.
Sure. We can work that into our discussion later about cursing the gods and things, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
And what about your part of Australia there? Do you said it's like a little haven? Do you lack all venomous creatures there as well? Unlike the rest of your
no,
continent?
that thing we don't lack. We don't lack the venomous creatures. But here's what I will say, right? I always get very confused at American people's
impression of natural
Australia, right? Like if you walk in the the forest here, or the bush, as they say, if you go bush here, that's not a euphemism, then you might come across snakes, but most likely they're going to be more afraid of you than you are of them, and they'll just go away. And so we have like super venomous snakes, but they're not as terrifying as being mauled by a coyote or a bear or a mountain lion or whatever.
Here in Arkansas, since I've lived in the house I'm in, I've had coyotes, cottonmouths, and copperhead snakes in my yard. So several things that I don't want to be bit by. Yeah, coyotes usually don't mess with you, but there's some weird big coyotes in my neck of the woods, so I don't know.
Oh my gosh, yeah. See, death follows you everywhere, right? Not just Australia with our snakes.
Absolutely. And here people might shoot at you. So hey, you got that too.
That's true. That's very, very true.
Oh, so today we are coming together to discuss. So I've been on your show a few times to discuss some letters from Seneca. Yeah. I'm working my way through the manual, or Enchiridion. And today we are on to number 31 from the Handbook of Epictetus. And this one's about our relationship to the divine, which is kind of an interesting letter. Do you want to say anything before we read it? Your introductions here?
Well, what would I say before we read it? All I would say is that one thing that I've been really, really thinking about for the past probably half year, it's been on my mind, has been the Stoic definition of wisdom, which includes a knowledge of the divine, right? So a knowledge of things human and divine. That was kind of, at least that's what I got from the lives of the eminent philosophers from Diogenes, that was their definition of wisdom. And so to me, I've been really thinking about how those two types of wisdom interact with each other. And I've also been thinking about Heraclitus, who obviously was a big influence on the Stoics and a lot of the ancient philosophers. One thing that he said was the oneness of all wisdom can be known or not under the name of God, right? So, you've got this idea that is flowing through that we need to have an understanding of what is divine as well, as what is human. And so I think that might be a good thing to just throw in there, that also when we read this, we need to understand that, well, we'll get into this with the question that has been asked later on, but sometimes we can judge the text based on our modern materialist worldview, whereas somebody like Epictetus, when he talks about God, when he talks about the gods, when he talks about divinity and stuff like this isn't what a lot of people today would consider to be an irrational belief. There is actually a mythological religious structure underlying the text, underlying his life, that he actually believed was rational and useful to think about. And so I think coming at it from that perspective, we can get a lot more from the text than if we just dive in with our own preconceived ideas of what is true and false and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I'd chuck in. I don't know. What about you?
How could I top that, Simon? I mean, it sounds. I concur. What his view of the Stoic view of gods and God, they use it all interchangeably, and sometimes nature and cosmos and logos, and it's hard to tease apart what's the differences and how does this all lie. And of course, that's all also superimposed or parallel with probably the more traditional Roman religions, which they were not. They may not have followed those religions exactly the same way that maybe the people did in Stoicism, but they still thought of the gods as a real thing, but perhaps they were all offshoots of one single God that has the various attributes. Whether or not that God was anthropomorphic, I don't know that they thought that necessarily. That's just how we like to relate to things. We humanize them so we can talk to them or think about them, because that's what we relate to most. So it's interesting to ask, we can't sit down with Epictetus and say, so what about this? Could you imagine how much we'd be yelled at if we sat down with Epictetus? And we're like, oh, I like Stoicism. He'd be like, when he's always like, show me your shoulders, like, oh, you're a Stoic. Yeah. Let's talk about that. It'll be interesting. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So let's go ahead and read the letter, and then we can chat about it. So this is the same translation I've been reading from. Do you have a copy, Simon, in front of you?
Actually, let me see. I can get one here.
I did email you one.
I did get it, and I can just go to the page here. I think it was
485 maybe, according to
otherwise, seeing as it is a short letter, I'm more than happy for you to do all the reading, because your voice is far greater than mine when it comes to reading. So
yeah, but now to my ears, you have a cool accent, so it makes it better, and
okay, thanks, mate.
Well, you don't have to. Hi, mine, I'm from Arkansas. We don't have to play a game.
Okay. Could you just tell me what page, the PDF page it is? Sorry.
The PDF page, according to my computer, is 485.
485. Okay. Look at me being not prepared.
This is what
Okay.
makes this is more. I like to think of my podcast as more like radio than a professional like audiobook production. So
Okay, good. Here we go. I've got it. All right.
coming to you live. Who should start off? The one in winter or the one in summer?
Completely up to you. How far are we going to read through at a time?
I'll just start, and then when I stop,
You start, and then I'll get an idea of what you want to be doing. Okay.
Okay,
cool.
sure. This sounds good. For piety towards the gods. Oh, by the way, this is letter 31 for those listening.
Yes.
From the Enchiridion. For piety towards the gods, know that the most important thing is this: to have right opinions about them, that they exist, and that they govern the universe well and justly, and to have set yourself to obey them, and to give way to all that happens, following events with a free will, in the belief that they are fulfilled by the highest mind. Should we pause there?
Yeah, let's pause there if that's okay. Well, I'll let you run this. Do you have any thoughts that you'd like to?
Well, obviously what he's saying here is that the gods exist, as he says, and this is something that's always intrigued me with traditional Stoicism. If you accept this notion that that they are controlling in some sense the flow of events in the universe, then you should always be at ease, because you just say, hey, everything's being under the control of the highest mind. So I need not concern myself. That's a reason not to be upset by externals, because those are under control outside of my sphere of influence. It would make it, I could see how, being a traditional Stoic, it would be easier to accept things that happen, because it's like, the will of the gods, It's unpious for me to say, well, what the heck? Why is there a drought? I'm mad. That's unpious. That you're just a toe on a foot in the body of the universe. You are not the whole organism. Things will happen to you, but it's under control. I don't know. It's an interesting way to view things. Go ahead, Simon.
Yeah, well, I want to pick up on that, being a part of the body of the universe, because that's one thing that really, really fascinates me about the kind of old world view of things, and the Stoic old world view, which is that, in the same way that your body is just made of atoms if you break it down far enough, and all those atoms go into bigger systems that then go into even bigger systems that then serve you. And then you have to think, what is beyond me? What is it that I serve in this cosmos? And it's funny, because when you look out at nature, you get the sense that the reason that we have the ability to perceive and pay attention to the cosmos and to our surroundings, it's like our biggest strength and our biggest weakness, because nothing else in nature looks around and complains at something that's going on. Nothing says, I wish it was another way, right?
Right.
To quote from a poem that I worked on, that hopefully will be released soon. It's as if everything that is just ising, right? Like it's just being, right? But we're the only things that get in there, and we're just like, oh, I don't like how this is, right? But I really think that when you fully understand is the wrong way to put it. I don't even think that that's the right term. I think when you see and when you feel the orderliness of the cosmos that we're in, and you recognize that we are a part of something much, much, much bigger than us. Then I think that if that doesn't give you a little bit of reverence about what it is that we're a part of, then you're not seeing something, and I almost think that it's possibly the most egotistical thing anybody could ever think, is to think that we are the top of the whatever this hierarchy is, right? And I guess I had a couple of other things that I wanted to throw in here for this one. Just thinking about his idea of listening to that kind of higher intelligence, because one thing that I really started to think about probably early last year was it doesn't make sense that we as human beings would be like the only thing within the cosmos that doesn't have some sort of internal compass guiding it where to go. And I feel like part of what the Stoics are trying to get at is to try and get us to stop, to sit, to stop complaining, stop making judgments, as he says later on. Stop thinking that you know what all of this is. Just stop, sit, start to look, start to watch the world around you, and start to listen to your internal world. Like Heraclitus said, he said, applicants for wisdom, do as I have done, inquire within, right? Inquire within and see if you can listen to that higher intelligence that is a part, that you are a part of and that you serve. And I think that only good things can come from that when you just stop and sit and listen and watch and pay attention. That's the logos. You'll see what it is that you need to see. So, yeah, this this idea that he gives here, these kind of three ideas of the gods exist and that everything is good. And I don't know, like with that everything is good thing, I think the only thing I'd add there is that people who have had divine experiences, mystics, philosophers, theologians, all throughout history have come to this place where they see that everything is good, because it's like, well, it's higher than me, it's bigger than me. I'm not going to be the person who judges that. I'll judge myself, but let's just see if we can get to that place where we understand that everything is good. And I think that once you get there, it's a beautiful place to be, to see that, like the Taoist farmer, that story, right?
Yeah. Who am I to say what is good, right?
Yeah, who am I to say what is going to happen? It's egotistical to think that we could even predict what will happen. So I don't know. That's all my long ramblings of a madman over here.
The parts that I know a lot of us will struggle with is, so you're saying childhood leukemia is good, that sort of thing. It's like, what is that? Does that flow from this idea, or are we thinking about it wrong? And the Stoics seem to shift how to think about things, and I think we'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward.
Absolutely.
Do you want to take off with the line "for thus"?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. For thus you will never blame the gods, nor accuse them of neglecting you. But this you cannot achieve unless you apply your conception of good and evil to those things only which are in your power, and not to those things which are out of your power. Shall I stop there?
Sure.
Oh, actually, there is an important part.
Oh, yeah, there is. Go ahead.
For if you apply your notion of good and evil to the latter, then as soon as you fail to get what you will to get, or fail to avoid what you will to avoid, you will be bound to blame and hate those you hold responsible. For every living creature has a natural tendency to avoid and shun what it seems harmful and all that causes it, and to pursue and admire what is helpful and all that causes it. Yeah, so I think we might even read that sentence again when we need to read the next one, but I'll throw it over to you. What are your thoughts of this?
Well, this is once again the Epictetus's mantra, which is switch everything around and focus on what's in your power, and everything outside your power is neither good nor bad, which is so if you become ill, that's the will of fate, the will of the gods. It's out of your power. You can think of it as neither good or bad. You could say it's good because it comes from the gods. I'm not sure the best way to view that as Epictetus would will it, but this is just what is happening to me. I think, let me see how, I wrote down what I looked at Massimo's translation of this, because he's obviously coming at it from a much more secular perspective than Epictetus would. And the way he puts it is, whatever happens to you is neither just or unjust, it just is. That's his way of viewing that. So rather than blaming he says, he doesn't think obviously there are gods. So he says, don't blame the gods, don't blame your neighbor or, necessarily, but things are due to the web of cause and effect in that case. What do you think about that reading, Simon?
Yeah, well, I agree that this, I've been thinking about this a lot since you sent me this letter, because I do really think that there's so much value in pausing in life, stopping yourself from making these unnecessary judgments, and just seeing what happens if you start to live in a way where you don't immediately, jump at the bit to give your opinion about what has happened, because in a sense, like I said before, I mean, I almost think it's egotistical for us to think that we could have such a broad-reaching knowledge of cause and effect and of fate and of what's happening in the cosmos to say, well, this is definitely bad. And one thing that I've been thinking about, Seneca, I did an episode on Seneca's, well, I'm doing them all the time now, but one of the episodes that I did on Seneca's letters recently, he was reminding us of just how bad we are at actually predicting anything that will happen, right? And so what happens is we think that something bad is going to happen in the future. And so what will happen is we're not actually living here, we're living there, and we're living in the fear and the pain of that thing that hasn't yet happened. And so we will transfer that fear and pain into us in this moment. And what happens is we're literally living out pain as a result of something that has not happened, may never happen, and probably will not happen based on your past record of predicting things. And when you think about that in relation to this, I think, man, just stop yourself from thinking that that there will be a good or bad outcome from anything that will happen. Just a classic example. This is actually a bad example because I do not have nearly enough intelligence to recall or use this example properly. But I did hear that one of the strange side effects of COVID and everybody being locked away, we saw the good effects of like some places being cleaned up, as in the air quality was like had a chance to breathe.
Right.
But there were also, I believe, some cases where it increased what you would say is global warming, because there was no longer that layer of smog that was stopping the sun from again, like it's a stupid example because I don't even know what I'm talking about. But the point is, we never, ever, ever, ever know what the outcome is going to be of anything. And so you might as well face life with amor fati, this kind of love for what happens. And I don't think that you truly see what could be good in your life until you come from that perspective. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. My brain flashes to graphics, like what would this look like as a picture? And I'm thinking of chains of cause and effect that could have labels, good, bad. And perhaps a Stoic should try to be a lens that no matter what smacks them, what comes out the other side is good, and that something bad happens to you, it's a cause. It was something triggered by events out of your power long ago or far away, and whatever it is has reached you. You could label it good or bad, but what you do with it is what's important. And perhaps you're going to affect that it's hard to say affect that effect. I don't know. You're going to be a cause of the next step of wherever that's going next, as it were, and try to turn it into a good, take the obstacle becomes the way kind of a situation. But if you just get mad and say this is nonsense, this BS, I'm done, you start blaming the gods, as it were, whether it be the gods or just events. I'm mad at events. I think being mad at events is a similar idea, rather than saying, well, that's not what I would prefer to have happen. But okay, well, it is what it is. I gotta, as the saying goes, I gotta roll with it. I gotta do what I can with it. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, even if it's events, right? Even if you're blaming events, in a way, I see gods as whatever is much bigger than us that basically controls us, right?
I was gonna like whatever the ultimate is, as it were. And so get bigger, get bigger, get bigger. So the ultimate is either the universe, the cosmos, or the other argument is there's a being that's through and above, or however you depict that to work in a pantheist way or a panentheist way, or however it is. But whatever the ultimate is the what some might, there are naturalists who call the universe, the cosmos, God, in a sense, because it's nature is their ultimate. What is the edge of that expanding circle? Where does it stop? Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, this is exactly right. I mean, one thing that we can all agree on, and I think this might be useful to bring everybody together, is that there are things that are bigger than us that absolutely control us. Like Carl Jung said, people don't have ideas, ideas have people. I think it's way more appropriate to think of ideas as something that grab onto people's minds, and you see this today. I mean, look, how many cults are people involved in, but they don't believe that they're cults because they're secular,
like
how many
Stoics.
I'm serious. Yeah. Even with the Stoic thing, like I've been trying to do that work on myself, of trying to remove myself from the ideology of Stoicism, so that I'm not just latching myself to something, although that can be useful in the short term. But we can all agree that there are things that are higher than us, that are working without our input, without us asking for them to do what they do, but they just do it. And so when you realize that, you kind of have to realize that, like Pinocchio, we are kind of just the playthings of the gods. We are just these puppets. If you consider gods to be whatever is higher than us that is moving around, culture, ideas. Music is a great example. You cannot help but be moved by music. You don't choose that. It just does it, right? And so you have to think, one other thing that I would add here, I hope it's useful, but maybe not. I think that when I think about, say, the Bible and the prophets in the Bible, I've come to see prophets in a different way, not as I think I see prophets as people who come along and say, you're all following something that is untrue, or you're following these false idols, right? Mm-hmm. Or you might think of it as, you're all disconnected from the universal laws of how things work. You don't see the truth of what life is about, and you're going to pay a big price for that. And if you don't turn around soon and see, then you're going to pay the price. And there you go. I'll just give you that information, right? And I do think that we're living in a time where people are just being pulled in every single direction, by all of these different ideologies, all of these different schools of thought, or ideas, or things that captivate their minds. And look at how divided the world is becoming, and technology and Facebook is a god. I see Facebook, or social media companies and stuff like that, they're idols, because you can give your attention and your time and everything you have to these things,
and you hope they will reward you with likes and follows.
Exactly. So yeah, I love thinking about this sort of stuff, because when you start thinking outside of yourself, you start to see that there's all these worlds that are moving above you and shifting people around. And it's kind of it's freaky, but it's useful. I don't know.
I think Facebook is an extension of Zeus. I don't know.
Who knows? Time will show, right?
That's right. I'm working on trying to write up something comparing Stoicism in particular, but religion and philosophy as a form of homeostasis, because I'm a biology teacher, and biology homeostasis returns you to a set point, where Stoicism tries to keep you from doing certain things in excess and returning you to a more moderate set point. Whereas some parts of biology ramp things up, like kind of like saying, "Ooh, I want this, I want more, I want more, I want more." Anyway, just a random side note, trying to tie
Yeah,
things back to the natural world, something I'm
absolutely.
trying to stew on in my head a bit. So
Can I
but the
just add
thing,
to that?
oh please.
Because one thing I find very interesting is that, and I'm really glad that you said that, because I think it was Jordan Peterson who said that he felt that the biologists didn't actually take religion seriously enough as they should have. Because I mean, if you're considering the natural world that we are a part of, we're in this layer, and then you've got culture, which is within the natural world, which is in the cosmos. It's like everything has to be accounted for, right? Like you can't just say, well, this is all a part of, evolution, but then that's it's just a glitch. It's like no, every single civilization has had some form of religious practice, some form of worship, some form of feeling a connection with what it is that we're a part of.
Mm-hmm.
That's not arbitrary, that's so intrinsically a part of who we are. And yeah, when I think about that, I think it's there for a reason, and people find their religion, whether they are in standard religions or not.
Right.
People will find their religion. They always do, like we have done with Stoicism. Let's not be silly about this. I mean, I left church when I was younger. Somehow I found my way into Stoicism, got very into it, found my religion. And so I think that, yeah, I don't know, I'm going to stop there before I bite my tongue.
Was it Mormonism, Simon? I can't remember.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. So in our cases, we could have a former Mormon and Catholic walk into a podcast. So yeah, I know that story as well. But what's interesting to me is the idea that you're flipping what's happening to you around. So things are not good or evil. Therefore, you're because if you think of a drought as evil, and then you say, well, therefore the drought's caused by the gods. Therefore, the gods have hurt me, and now I'm mad at the gods. But he's saying the drought it's not good or bad. It just is. It's part of something that you are incapable of fully grasping. You need to focus on the things in your power and move on. That's kind of the feeling I'm getting here from Epictetus.
Absolutely.
So he says, let's see here. Where did we leave off exactly? I think, okay. So you said we should maybe redo that last sentence.
Yeah. Was it for everything living?
For every living creature has a natural tendency to avoid and shun what seems harmful and all that causes it, and to pursue and admire what is helpful and all that causes it. It is not possible then for one who thinks he is harmed to take pleasure in what he thinks is the author of the harm, any more than to take pleasure in the harm itself. That is why a father is reviled by his son when he does not give his son a share of what the son regards as good things. Thus, Polynices and Eteocles, I'm not sure. These, I know they are sons of I'm going to lose my story here. They're sons of Oedipus, and they were going to possibly either one could have the throne, and they fought each other and perhaps killed each other. Were set at enmity with one another by thinking that a king's throne was a good thing. That is why the farmer and the sailor and the merchant and those who lose wife or children revile the gods. For men's religion is bound up with their interest.
Yeah. I guess I'll throw something in here. The thing that I wrote down that I thought was interesting about that is look at the way that Epictetus is speaking about life. I love that he's talking about, look, everything is drawn towards that which is good for it, and is kind of repelled by that which is not what you might say good for it. I like seeing a philosopher who uses that kind of language as if they're sitting in nature and they're watching it and they're trying to gain some lesson. That to me seems more like the logos than anything, right? The logos is when you stop judging, when you stop thinking that you have enough intelligence within you to know everything and to know that everything is good or bad, be a little bit like Socrates, recognize that you know nothing, which is definitely the start of wisdom, right? And then what you do is you watch the world around you without judgment. The best way I've heard it described is almost like a snake. The snake isn't watching the world around us thinking, well, we don't know, but it's probably not thinking that's good, that's bad, right? It's watching and it's looking at what happens. Some of the best advice I ever got, Steve, was to take a week and just watch yourself as if you don't know who you are. Just pretend for a moment you don't know who you are and just watch yourself as if you're this thing moving through the world. What is this thing interested in? What is this thing drawn towards? What is it repelled from? What gives it pleasure? What gives it anger? All these things. When you watch yourself like that, you'll learn some things, but you don't learn those things when you're kind of in yourself, when you're just, when you think that you've got it. And that's kind of one thing that I took away from that passage, is just looking at the way that he speaks about things and thinking that we need to return to that place of attentive watching with care, not with judgment, because then you'll actually see some things.
A view from above, but don't go too far. Yeah, hang out at low altitude.
And yeah, but then you read something like Seneca, right? It seemed like he went to the outer space and into the stars and was flying around on a magic saucer or something like that. This guy, but go on. And I don't know, what are your thoughts of that?
Well, I think like you said, I've not been able to watch myself live, as it were, but I have tried reflecting back. What would an observer say I'm into? Because you might think of yourself as this person, but then you're like, boy, I sure do watch a lot of television for a person who claims to not be into television, or I sure, that sort of thing. I'm sure I'm a hypocrite. You can catch that if you don't look at what you claim to be, but what your actions say you are. But then when you watch the natural world, I think I see a lot of, and I know a lot of people have said this too, a lot of the Tao and the Logos, and a lot of the kind of reverence for the natural world, observance of the natural world, taking lessons from the way things work, and reflecting on that. And I know I've seen how many times this is happening in my own family. Hopefully no one listens, where people are not getting what they consider to be a good, like scraps of meat thrown to dogs, right? Someone wants something, someone else gets said thing, and then anger rises, and feuds ensue, and once again, who's to say what is good and bad, and so on and so forth. But then when you don't get what you want, I can see those who are angry then resenting the decision maker, the author of the injustice, and in this case, we're extending that all the way out to Zeus or whoever it may be that he is referring to here. If you don't reflect on what is in your power properly, then the hardest one for me to think about is, let's say you believe in whatever deity you wish, and then your child dies, which I'm sure was a very common thing at the time of this writing. It's still common in some parts of the world, unfortunately. How do you think about that in a Stoic way, where you're not like, okay, I think there's a being who may or may not, maybe they can't control all things. Depends how you think of this author of things. but they are in charge of everything, and my child that I loved is dead, and they were, as in my eyes, the most innocent being in the world. I am now upset with the deity, right? And he's saying that that is the wrong way to view this, and once again, I think the way Massimo put it in his book is that we are like a digit on a body. We are not the most important. The gods are not sitting on your shoulder dictating individual human lives. It's all about the cosmos as a whole, perhaps, is the way that they're thinking about this, rather than you as a person. And so we have to think about good and bad in a different way than we would if we were Christians, thinking about an angel in the room helping us out. It's a different kind of view of the cosmos.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think it's so necessary to get to that place, right, where you stop thinking that you have you stop having the audacity to think that you know best or what would be best. And I take inspiration from that song. We didn't start the fire; it was always burning since the world was turning. This whole thing that's happening right now, it's a fire, and we don't get to stop that. We're just watching it burn, right? And it will always be burning, whether we're here or not. I think obviously it's tough to think about, when really quote unquote bad things happen, but also don't knock it till you tried it. I mean, don't mock this system until you've actually tried standing back and saying, okay, like the practice that I do. You'll be glad after our last conversation, I actually started doing kind of like an ascetic practice, just trying to, actually, it came from a place of ego, so it's probably not that great. But I met up with an old friend and at a party, and he was telling me how he was actually my music teacher from when I was younger, and a great guy. And he was telling me how he was doing cold showers. And so I thought, well, if I'm doing a Stoic podcast, I better start doing cold showers. And so, I think day 3. One of the questions that I started thinking about, and this is one thing that I would say to everybody, if you're ever doing exercises like this, I'm not going to say whether you should or not, but if you do, make sure you question yourself in those moments about the underlying narratives that are flowing through your being that you're actually believing in. And to me, I recognize, okay, well, if I'm having an aversion to hopping in a cold shower, the underlying narrative that is guiding me right now is that cold water is bad. It's going to be bad for me, and it would be better if I didn't do this. And then the underlying narrative beneath that is that it's like, how weak of a person do I believe I am if that's a painful thing, if that's a bad thing? And you start to see, if you really watch yourself, again, like a snake, like you watch yourself in that moment when you have a bad feeling or an aversion to something, think about, what is that narrative that's going on? What's happening underneath there? And you realize that there are all these stories that flow through your mind that have no bearing on reality, but they're just these things that are flowing through, and you're just picking them and saying, yep, good enough, I'll go with this.
The shallow autopilot thinking rather than applying principles kind of thinking. Yeah, exactly. And one thing I was just thinking of when we were just talking, I was reading a modern translation of Seneca's letters the other day, and it has a lot of footnotes and things. And I read about Stilpo. I'm sure you remember him, the I have lost nothing guy, when they burned this village down, and I carry my goods with me. And the footnotes had some interesting info in that. And we were talking about, losing a child, blaming the gods and all that, losing a loved one. And according to Stilbo, if I remember the footnote correctly, his view was like a farmer with a tree. If a branch dies, that means you're going to be cautious and take care of the rest of the tree more mindfully. If you have a family member that dies, that you can turn that to a good, as it were, by remembering to spend more time with who you have remaining. And so it's another way to think about it slightly differently. Not that it's like, yay, grandma's gone. That's not it at all. It's not like grandma's dead and that's a good. grandma's gone. What can I do to make, because everything's about your choice. What can I do that's good? Taking this lesson and into heart and applying it to something. And thinking about it deeper than you might otherwise think about it.
Well, I mean, that's no different to what, here we go, the best Stoic of all, Tony Robbins. No, I'm just kidding. But he said, act as if life is happening for you, not to you, which is basically another way of saying amor fati, love your fate. You know, it's the same idea repackaged. And if you have that idea, then like you say, you know, you're not going to think, woe's a me, life sucks, and, you know, I wish this didn't happen. You'll think, oh, okay, it's happening for me. What can I take away from this? And man, I think especially like I one of the ways that I've thought about Stoicism, I'll throw this idea over to you. Tell me what you think. If you think about ideas and philosophies and principles as these things that find us, we don't necessarily find them. Sorry. When did Stoicism really start getting popular in our modern time? Well, it started getting popular around the time where we started getting pretty damn hedonistic. like the barriers of morality are caving in, you know. We live in these societies that are just constantly feeding more to our desires, more, I want more. And then Stoicism kind of reemerges, right? And you might all call me crazy, but I think that you could see it as a battle of the gods, you know, of this kind of world where this kind of hedonistic god of, you know, give me more pleasure. But then the kind of ascetic practices of Stoicism come along and balance the whole thing out, you know, and say, hey, hang on. And so you see a lot of people moving to philosophy now because they see that it gives a deeper satisfaction for life. And I can't help but think that that's almost like a battle of the gods situation where these ideas are coming in and bringing us back into a harmony in our society and making us realize more important things, or, you know, and so, yeah, to me, it seems like a lot of the time we act like spoiled, you know, children when we don't get what we want. But we need to be grounded and reminded that whoever told you in the first place that this stuff was given to you, who told you that death wasn't a thing,
right?
Who put that crazy idea in your mind that you would never experience death or suffering or pain in your life? That's the whole idea of Christianity, for example, is that life is suffering. Look at this, the best possible person you could think of on a cross, rotting away. That's the image that they place before us. You know, it's like, whoever told you that that wasn't exactly what life is like? And so, I don't know, I'll throw it over you. What do you think?
I think it kind of goes back to my attempt to relate Stoicism to homeostasis.
Yeah.
We have a set point for our body temperature. When we get too hot, we sweat, we return to set point. When we get too cold, we shiver, we return to set point. Stoicism tries to keep us from, and Stoicism, you know, it unlike some philosophies, you know, some philosophies say, no, give up everything. But it says, no, live intelligently where you are with what you got. You don't want to crave more. You don't want to go, I need more, I need more, I need more. You say, I'm happy with what I have. You don't have to give everything you have away to be a Stoic. You might give away the things that you realize cause you to live unvirtuously, and return to set point. That
set point is just such a great way of looking at it, because you can go real high and then you can go real low. And
set points can change depending on your religion or your philosophy. Just like when you're sick, your set point changes and your body temperature goes up. Your set point, if you decide to be a cynic, your set point for what you own in your house is going to be set way different than if you are Aristotelian or something and you're living a different philosophy. You know, if you're a Christian versus, you know, some other Buddhist or whatever, I'm sure the set point for certain things will be in different places. But yeah, I think a lot of it for us in our Western, we'll call it, societies, we could have, if we wanted to, we could have a package delivered to our house every day full of junk, and we could just keep that going if we wanted to, and our house would be full. But we have to know why we're doing this. What is the driving force here? Why do I want this? Is it going to help me to live a better life, or is it going to, am I lying to myself and deceiving myself into thinking I need this thing? And that's all about that deep thinking again, that living according to a philosophy rather than a ooh neat click. I want that.
Yeah. Oh, and it can be enticing, right? Ooh, love that click. Love that feeling of Amazon sending me a new book. Oh,
that's right. Oh, I know. I know, it's horrible.
This is why they point out, rightfully so, that even your education can become this monster that eats away at you. It's like, sometimes you need to throw away the books. Sometimes you need to pause and recognize that it's, like Heraclitus said, it's something that you need to really find within yourself. You need to build that relationship and stop filling your mind with these externals.
I'm sorry, I'm so sarcastic, Simon. I was going to say you can stop the podcast and start taking cold showers, but I thought, no, for only $29.95, you can get a Bluetooth speaker that will play in your shower. You can listen to this podcast while you take a cold shower. Like Heraclitus said, you can only drown in the same river once. Oh, never mind. Anyway, sorry.
Well, I mean, on that note, like, in a serious note, though, I've been thinking lately, one of the most important things that I could tell my audience, and this might be blasphemy on here, I shouldn't say this here, but stop listening. Like, like at some point, if you're anything like me, and if you love having those headphones in, if you love listening to that stuff, at some point you have to say, hang on, am I doing the practice, or am I just filling my mind with new information all the time, thinking that that's the thing that is philosophy? Philosophy is not filling your mind with information. It's doing the work of questioning what is going on within you. And it's doing the work of practicing it in your life. And listening to something is not practicing philosophy. Getting something from the podcast, using it in your life could be, right? But I've often thought that, like, I'll eventually lead to my own demise by telling people, okay,
you need to stop. You need to stop listening to this show.
We've said everything we need to say. Just go away. Just try it.
Right. That's right.
All right. So let me dive in and read this. Yeah.
Why don't you? I think we're about done with the letter. Do you want to knock it out?
Sure. Wait, now, where did we get to?
Oh crap! I lost.
Is it therefore he who makes?
I left with one of my favorite lines, which was about religion. For men's religion is bound up with their interests. It's hard to separate what you're into from what your God's like and things like that. So okay.
Heck yeah. A great point as well. He goes on. I'll read to the end. He says, therefore, he who makes it his concern rightly to direct his will to get I'm going to start this again. I'm terrible at reading aloud, by the way. I may have told you a story last time, but I'll tell you again once I've read this anyway. Therefore, he who makes it his concern rightly to direct his will to get and his will to avoid is thereby making piety his concern. But it is proper on each occasion to make libation, and sacrifice, and to offer first fruits according to the custom of our fathers, with purity and not with slovenly, I love that word, or careless fashion, without meanness and without extravagance. I have to tell you this, Steve, otherwise I'm going to feel, I think this is a great story. And then I promise we'll dive back into the text. But I think that one of these subconscious reasons why I have like a fear of reading aloud, I was never a good out loud reader when I was young. And I never really read heaps either. I remember one day at church, I was in there and I had a particularly mean Sunday school teacher. No, not particularly. He wasn't the kind of guy you look up to and respect.
Right.
Yeah, he was kind of this depresso kind of guy, like anyway, the point is I didn't respect him. I didn't really like him, and he was somewhat of a bully type. And so it came to my turn to read this verse in the Bible, and I'm going along and I'm reading it. Like you do sometimes, you're not in the moment doing the thing that you're doing. You're actually thinking about all of, like I said before, I was living out the pains of the future because I could see that there was a word coming up. The word was Gentiles. And I was like, don't say genitals, don't say genitals. And so I'm reading in front of my Sunday school class and I say genitals instead of Gentiles.
Damn.
And everybody laughs. And I think that subconsciously that like linked in with, it really grabbed me and it made me, I'm still getting over that inability to comfortably just read something without judgment of myself. It's like when I read something, I'm watching myself, it's
right. Oh, here it comes. I'm going to mess up. Yep.
Here it comes. I'm going to say genitals. But,
and you did just now.
That's it. So that whole story was just an excuse for me to say that word on your podcast. But anyway,
I appreciate it. You're the first person I think to ever use that word on the podcast. I appreciate it.
So Steve, would this be a good time to bring that question from your
I was just let me just give my little thought on the last little segment here. I thought, once again, we got to make Epictetus's dichotomy our primary focus, according to Epictetus, of course. It's his 12-step program, as it were. It's like, this is what you do. Focus on what is in your power, what is not. I thought it was interesting at the end, in his view, piety, which we can talk about in a second, is focusing on what is and what is not in our power. That is doing what we're supposed to do and letting the gods take care of what the gods take care of and not blaming them. That is a form of religious piety. But he says, but you can also, it's okay, it's proper to practice the religion of your forefathers and do those rituals and things that, but just don't go over the top with it. Don't do it sarcastically and don't go over the top. Just offer your first fruits to the gods and do the rituals that your people do. But primarily the way you show reverence is by accepting what is and what is not in your power. That's kind of what I took from that last sentence.
And to the point of sacrifice as well. I think that the translation that I read said something like and to not do these rituals with rote, which I assume he was meaning, don't do it carelessly, right? And I believe in the power of rituals. I think that they're very useful. I think that they connect us to deep feelings of connection. Well, they connect us to deep feelings of connection. Well, they awaken us to deep feelings of connection with the people who have come before us. And I think that, who was it? Rupert Sheldrake, I think, has this idea that he's this scientist from England, and he has this idea that there's this memory that travels with rituals, in the same way that Confucius says you don't get the way without the rites. You don't get the ancient memory from your forefathers without the ritualistic practices of these traditions, because to imagine that these traditions are just without purpose and silly and irrational, it's like, well, they've always been with us. We've always been doing it. Like, why would you assume that now they're just useless when we've always been doing something?
There's a new book by Sasha Sagan, Carl Sagan's daughter, astrophysicist that did the show Cosmos. I don't know if you're familiar, but Sasha wrote a book called For Small Creatures Such as We. And she comes at it from a secular standpoint, but the importance of ritual and all different concepts of ritual that she thinks are important, that she was brought up with, or that could be applied to modern humans. And I've been enjoying it. It's one of those books. I have a bad habit of having about 7 books that I'm kind of working on, and I read a chapter here and then I go off over here. So I can't tell you everything about it, but I've enjoyed the read, though, because I think I grew up in the Catholic Church, of course, and they do rote ritual where you memorize prayers, for example, and it's just you do it's this, it's more of a memorized thing. The rosary is a memorized thing rather than something that you may not even be in the moment anymore, just because you're so used to doing it. That's kind of, I think, what he's chastising there. But I do know the power of ritual, whether it be an initiation or a group of people all doing the same thing, and you feel that connection, and then knowing that people 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago may have been doing a similar ritual. That would be a very powerful thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that our religious backgrounds can help us with this. Like you just said, I mean, one thing that I certainly noticed when I was growing up was that, people obviously pray in religion, and I never started thinking about prayer in the right way, I think, until recently. It's like a meditation, you might think of it. It's supposed to be, but what I saw when I was growing up was that there were some people who would pray with conviction, and you really felt their prayer. Like, you really felt that you were there with them, and that you felt that conviction. It transferred to you. But then as I was growing up, I noticed that slowly, the people around me who were praying, the prayers became more scripted. And in the mythological sense, the culture, it's as if it's turned to stone. That's exactly what happens. Your culture turns to stone when you start doing your rituals, it just in the same way that you've always been doing them, by the script, by this, by that. And then it just becomes words, right? And so instead of actually thinking about what you're praying about, you're just saying, Heavenly Father, bless this food that will nourish our bodies, and we pray that we'll have a good time tonight with each other, and we'll have good, and then amen. And everybody says amen.
The only time it's with real conviction is when they're like, let my sports team win tonight. Dear God, please let them win.
See, we'll find our religion, right? You'll find your conviction to some ritual, right? But I thought, man, that's exactly what happens. Your culture turns to stone, and your job is to bring the vitalizing, revivifying water back to your culture so that you actually feel something when you're doing these rituals. So I just thought, when it comes to there's a question here, like, do you really take anything seriously if you're not willing to sacrifice and with conviction, right? I like this idea of sacrifice because I mean, it's that idea of, it's easier for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. Why? Because the rich man won't give up what he thinks is his, right? He won't give it up. He's still attached to it. He still desires it. And to give of your best, whether it's the first fruits or whether it's giving your best towards something that you think is important, it means that you're taking life with a certain degree of seriousness, that you actually recognize that there is power in your actions and in giving up something that you conceive to be valuable, and recognizing that you're fine without it. It doesn't belong to you. I don't know. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Well, this kind of like tithing, give 10%. Yeah. A lot of people give 10% of their income to their chosen religion, especially I'm familiar with, Christian religions anyway. And that's the number that tends to come up. I think it's based from the Bible itself. I didn't know too many people personally who, my family would be like, here's a $5 bill for the week. Thank you very much. It wasn't like, here's $600 or whatever. Well, $5 might have been about 10% for my folks when I was little, but they didn't have a lot. But it takes a deep seriousness in that sense. And so we could extend that idea outside of a formal religion, kind of like how serious are you about your philosophy, and how are you willing to give up? And we're warned by the Stoics, you're going to have to give up some things for now if this is your path. And but hey, we're running long here, and I don't want to hold you up too long. Let's get to Jared's question before we run out of time. Yeah. So one of my patrons asked a question. He says, piety is defined as, quote, a belief or viewpoint that is accepted with unthinking conventional reverence, unquote. He says, is piety something that Stoics should aspire to? Taking an unthinking, unquestioning view of reality seems to plant the seeds for inaccurate thinking and beliefs. Wouldn't it be more correct to test our assumptions about reality, to accept things as they are, but not rely on unquestioned beliefs as guidance to interpret the world? So Simon, I know you said you were thinking hard about this question a bit, and you want to give us some thoughts?
I guess I would first, let me throw some thoughts over. Firstly, I also did my research and I looked up the definition, and I felt like there was a bit of pick and choosing going on with the definition, because there's another definition that comes first.
Okay.
Which is the quality of being religious or reverent, right? Which doesn't necessarily mean having an unthinking way of looking at life. This is what I meant when I started the episode by thinking, well, we need to recognize that Epictetus is not saying we need to accept things with unthinking and, an unthinking attitude, because he actually thinks about this and he actually believes it, right? Like he actually thinks that this stuff is true, right? The way that he looks at the world. And so he's definitely not saying that. He's definitely not telling us to not think. But is he saying that we should be reverent in life? I've been thinking about this for a few weeks, actually. It came to me recently that when you leave a religious structure, one of the things that you leave behind is the language or the logos of that way of seeing the world. You leave behind the structure of viewing the world in a certain way. And you leave behind words like reverence, righteousness, virtue, holy, sacred.
Yeah. Oh, they're
sacred. all these words, right, that we leave behind when you move into a secular world. But what do these words mean? And I don't know. I think that if you look out at what's happening in nature, in culture, if you truly pay attention to the stunning nature of what it is that we're all a part of here, even with the suffering, there's still something about life that is completely amazing, right? And it deserves a reverence. It deserves, like, what is holy? What is sacred? Do we ask these questions? And so to me, I think when I think of piety, I think of a reverence in life, a recognition of what is holy, what is sacred, what is to be taken with a degree of seriousness and reverence. That's what I think of. And I think that, of course, the Stoics would not say accept something unthinkingly, but all of the Stoics talked about God or the gods or universal nature or the cosmos, whatever you call it. They talked about higher realms that we don't necessarily get to travel to, but that we get a sense of through the logos and through our reason, right? And so I think that it's looking at it from the wrong angle potentially. That's what I think.
I know Marcus, we quote this a lot, but Marcus famously doesn't unquestioningly accept how the world works. He at least entertains God or atoms, and comes to the conclusion that either way, Stoicism is probably the way to go. If it's the gods, then it's reverence. It's a way of showing reverence to accept their will as it is, and to take control of your own decision-making process and live the best way you can. If it's atoms and there's no helmsman in control exactly, it's the laws of nature and not a mind, then Stoicism is a bulwark against the what's the word I want to say, like vicissitudes. I don't know if that's a word. Against the uncertainties of the vagaries of life, the uncertainness of life. It's a way to survive being bounced around by the wrestling match that is life. As he says, it's not a dance, it's a wrestling match, and whether there be a God in charge or cause and effect, you're still going to be thrown to the mat, and you're going to have to get back up again. And so yeah, I think I like the reverent definition better. I think that probably fits what he's saying here better than unthinking, unwavering belief in an unquestionable God or way of being. I think you're probably correct on that assumption.
And just one thing to latch onto what you just said there. I mean, one thing that really changed the way I look at God and my seeking of some sort of understanding of God was learning that the word Israel in the Bible actually means they who wrestle with God. And so the chosen people are not the people who say, I believe, I believe, I believe. They're the people who say, well, I'm going to put it to the test. You know, I'm going to actually question. I'm going to wrestle with this idea. I'm going to put in effort like we do with philosophy. Because I just got to a point, I think it was about 1.5 years ago, where I started realizing, hang on, I've got all these ideas about what God is or what it means. I've never thought about this. I've never spent serious time in contemplation about what these ideas are and what they mean for a meaningful life. So I'm an idiot if this is the most fundamental question of life. It's the question that everybody will ask, whether it's now or whether it's just before they die. You know, it's like, what is it that we're all a part of here? That's the question of God. And I think that you don't have to accept it unthinkingly. That's what theologians are. They're people who think about this all day, every single day. It's what mystics are. They're people who think about this all day, every single day. It's like you can think about these ideas intelligently, and to imagine that talking about religion or God or the gods is somehow irrational only shows, in my opinion, that you haven't done the necessary thinking to realize the Socratic way of, you don't know anything. You know, so don't make that judgment so quickly. I don't know. That's what I'll throw out there.
Well, yeah. And so Jared, you're welcome to email us your thoughts, or like all patrons, you can join me on a chat here in the next few weeks, and we'll talk about it again. But Simon, I love your deep thinking and passion on these subjects. And every time I talk to you, I'm like, oh, we should talk about this. Oh, I want to talk to you about that. And there's always a limit on our time and how long someone's going to be willing to listen to what we talk about. We may just have to talk without recording it sometime. I don't know. But
yeah, Steve, this has been so much fun, man. I really enjoyed this conversation, and as we develop our relationship, I know that it's getting deeper and deeper, and the conversations are getting deeper as well. I love that. So I know that lately I've had kind of a radio silence. I'm just so involved in a few things that need to be done very soon. But I imagine that there will be more time for us to get together very soon. I'm looking forward to it.
Sounds great, Simon. And for all my listeners out there, let's see if Simon remembers how to sign off on the Sunday Stoic podcast.
Oh, heck yeah. Carpe diem.
Carpe diem.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure if there was supposed to be something extra there. I'm so sorry.
No,
I just ruined it.
I am not a fancy man. So
Carpe diem.
Thank you for listening to the Sunday Stoic. Become a member of the Sunday Stoic team. Earn rewards by becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/SundayStoic. Contact the show by emailing sundaystoic@gmail.com. And as Steve always says, Carpe diem.